City Spotlight is supported by Consolidated Communications. CCI is honored to salute the cities and their leaders in the area, as well as providing TV, internet, and phone service to local homes and businesses. We live where we work and are proud to support the communities we serve. More information available at consolidated.com.
Welcome to City Spotlight, where we're focusing on East Central Illinois communities. Today we're talking about Effingham. And with us today is the Mayor of Effingham, Merv Gillenwater, and the City Administrator of Effingham, Jim Arndt. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And before we get started, let's talk a little bit about yourselves, a little background information. Merv, please.
Well, actually, I graduated from here at Eastern Illinois University in 1974 with a business degree. I spent my majority of my adult life as a military police officer, but Illinois State Police officer, which most of the time I was a criminal investigator. And then after I retired in 2003, I did teach at Lakeland College. I was an adjunct instructor there of criminal justice classes, and then actually ran for council in 2007.
Okay. And Jim, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I sure can. Just like the mayor, I'm also a graduate from Eastern back in 2004. Graduated with my master's degree in political science. And after that, I went into the field of city administration. Served over in Ohio for 3 years, actually 4 years, I guess, in Ohio, 3 years in Missouri, then for the last 4 years down in Effingham.
Excellent. Well, both of you, welcome back to Eastern.
Thank you.
All right, we'll get started here. Merv, tell us what was Effingham like when you kind of got started with the city government, you said about 8 years ago.
Right. Well, actually, it's grown considerably since then as far as businesses. Population, not so much. We have a lot of outlying subdivisions that we kind of claim, but they don't add up to our population. There were some interesting things going on in regard to a sports complex that was being proposed. There was a process that was being considered about moving our library. And another controversial issue was we had just gotten a third water source from Holland Energy that was out of the Cascadia River. So there were a lot of controversial issues going on at that particular time, but and economic development was just really starting to take hold in a big way.
And fast forward now, you went from being a member, was it city commissioner?
Yes, I was actually a commissioner. When I first elected, we had a commission form of government at that time.
Okay. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Now you've been mayor for the last 4 years.
Yes.
What are some things that you've accomplished here in Effingham in those 4 years?
Well, I like to say that we've accomplished. I kind of approached being mayor as a team effort. Our economic development has actually grown. We now have a director and also a person who assists him on a daily basis. We actually work, we have a weekly meeting that we talk about economic development, and we advertise a lot. We use the social media a lot now to advertise our city. It has exploded in the last 4 years. We also, one of my goals when I came on as the council even, is to try to increase the money that we were using for infrastructure. And I think we're really doing a good job with that, not only building new, but taking care of what we have.
All right, and previously mentioned, you did have a different form of government. Jim is your city administrator, and he's the first city administrator in Effingham. So let's talk about that. You had a commissioned form of government prior to that. What was that form of government like, and what things have been different with having a city administrator?
Yes. As I said, when I came on in 2007, we were a true commissioner form of government, which meant that actually the commissioners all were responsible for particular departments. For example, I was over the fire department and water department, so on a daily basis I was responsible for them. The mayor at that time was over public affairs and the police department, and of course he has always been the chief executive officer and over the city in general. But basically, the responsibility for the daily operations, other than having department heads which were below the commissioners, we were responsible for those departments. And we've always seen the need to change that, and make it more consistent, make the government more consistent in that. But it became really a need right after I got elected, because when I got elected, the entire council changed except for one person, which meant we were all new to the job. And so that was one of our primary goals. We accomplished that actually in November of 2010, I believe.
10, yes.
And so I actually got to work as a commissioner for 6 months with Jim as a city administrator, and then later on when I became mayor.
And what was that transition like? You said it was kind of everybody had new jobs, responsibilities.
Well, right. What now the commissioners work more as regular council members or aldermen or things like that. They still have the title of commissioners because we're in a modified commission form of government with the city administrator. But now the daily operations are overseen by Jim. A lot of the responsibilities that we had, we had a city clerk that did some work taking care of things in addition to the commissioners. But now Jim takes care of the finance, like I said, overseeing the departments. It's just much more professional than what we had before.
And Jim, let's talk to you a little bit about what you do, some of your many responsibilities, including finances. And I understand that you've been working on the budget for the next fiscal year. Talk about that process and how that's gone.
It's gone well. I think when I came on board back in 2010, as the mayor said, we really implemented a process to do our annual budgets before it was done by the commissioners and their respective departments. So bringing this position in allowed us to kind of focus and the entire have somebody there to kind of focus on the entirety of the city, and basically make sure that all the departments are provided for within reason, of course. And so what we've done was we've actually implemented a process where we would I would meet with all the department heads, get their submissions, and then we'd sit down with the council members on an individual basis, get their submissions and their input on those requests from the department heads. Then we'll actually go through the process of putting it into the system, making sure it's in balance, and then having actually a formal budget workshop. And in fact, this year our budget workshop will be on the 25th of March, I believe. At that workshop, it's open to the public. Try to get the public's input on the process, also on the proposed budget, if you will. Get the council members' last input, get the department heads' last input, and then actually move that document forward, place it on file for inspection, and then bring it for approval in April. With the intent, of course, to make sure your revenues and your expenditures all balance out, and that you have a firm plan to move ahead, with the next year.
And a word that you used there was balanced, and Effingham's had a balanced budget for the past 4 years. How are things looking for this current year?
Things are looking really well. We do a good job trying to maximize the revenue that we have that comes into the city, at the same time cutting back on our expenditures. Over the last 4 years also, the council has been great to work with. They've allowed us to set up a fund balance policy, one that we set aside money every year to make sure we have protected fund balances, making sure we have designated reserves, undesignated reserves, and contingency reserves. So basically, before I got there was reserve money in the budget, but it was not actually called reserves. So now we're actually making sure people realize that we have money set aside for those emergencies that might pop up. This year actually we're in our 5th year of that reserve policy, and we actually have 16.6% budgeted out of each of our primary funds to be set aside. So basically, roughly 2 months of the reserves, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Excellent. And to be able to have a balanced budget for a number of years, during your term you've had basically a balanced budget. What has that been like?
Well, it actually lets us all know better about what we're going to be spending and what we're going to be spending on. And I want to go back to when I was a commissioner. That was one of the problems, is that if you were stronger at fighting for your department, you might have got a larger slice of the pie, but that might have left some other departments lacking. With the way it's done now, Jim looks at every one of the departments and sees where the needs are and make sure that those monies go to the right departments, and we can plan so much better now.
Now let's move on to ordinances and regulations. Anything changed recently in Effingham that people could know about?
Well, yes. I think probably the people in Effingham probably are very aware of it. Having come from a law enforcement background, one of the first things I saw was the need to change the liquor ordinance. At that time, basically, we had 2 licenses that were categories of licenses for packaged liquors and for on-premises consumption license. we were starting to get a lot of requests, especially when the gambling came around. A lot of people were wanting to come in and just get liquor licenses so that they could have gambling. And the more I looked at the license, the more I decided that we really need to do a complete revision of that. And I'm lucky enough to have an administrative assistant who is the Deputy Liquor Commissioner. She's done this position for the last, 12, 15 years, or even longer than that, probably 16 years. So she's very aware of how it works. We actually sat down and went through it basically page by page. Now we have classifications for restaurants, for a convention center, for our golf course, for our package stores, for all the different things, and we actually kept each one of those. That way, if someone comes in and asks for a liquor license, we can try to determine, is this something that will be good for the person who's requesting it, and is it also good for the city? If not, we may not increase that number. If it is, then we'll go ahead and increase it, and then we'll go ahead and approve it later. And it made it a lot easier to control what goes on. Liquor is one of those you've got to keep your eye on to make sure that the establishments understand what the requirements are and that they fulfill those requirements.
Let's move on to economic landscape. And if you could paint a picture for us, what's the economic landscape of Effingham?
It's actually doing very well right now. As we said, we have probably $600 million worth of sales that are being made in Effingham on an annual basis. It's kind of interesting. Jim and our economic development director can give a little story about when they used to go to conventions. They had to chase down people trying to get them to talk to us.
Literally.
And now we have them calling us. Wanting to at least get some information about Effingham. We have been lucky enough to we have unique restaurants that are now, like Fujiyama, an hibachi style restaurant. Of course, we've had Firefly for a few years now, but we have our business and commercial, retail, and manufacturing are all doing well. When I first took over as mayor, we were told there's not enough good paying jobs here in Effingham. Well, we've kind of taken care of that somewhat. Our medical community has grown. We have several bank corporate headquarters located there now. We have Heartland Dental. Yeah. Yes, thank you. That has expanded, more than expanded their building. We also have other industry that's in that white collar crime, white collar area. My police experience came into play later. But, and then we also we started getting more about we need more for manufacturing type skills, and that's something we're trying to address now too.
That's right.
I've counted something like 20 businesses in Effingham with at least 100 employees, so you have a very diverse and a large.
You're right on the money. Our industrial facilities, our base, if you will, is very diverse, which is something we're very proud of, and we work at that as well. But food processing has been picking up for us, and we continue to strive to get that up because people have to eat. No matter what type of economic situation you're in, you have to eat. So we feel like that's a very strong one to support. And we have a lot of activity going on now. We left our planning meeting today. We had, I think, 30 items on the agenda for different companies, different potential projects in the future. And it's like that basically every week, where we meet weekly. We go over a lot of projects, a lot of requests that we get in from different companies. And a lot of them are just looking for a place to be. And that's our main challenge in Effingham, is trying to find them land. We have the interest, we have the excitement's there for Effingham, and they tell us, we want to be in Effingham, we just got to find a spot. Our struggle is that challenge of trying to get them where they find the right spot for the right price.
And obviously people know Effingham, the interstate that crosses through, the crossroads motto that is kind of you've seen all over Effingham. How has the interstate impacted, not just in the 50 years that the interstate has gone through Effingham, how has that impacted recently?
It's been a wonderful blessing for us to have. It's one of those things where it's one of our strengths. As you said, people know us because of the interstates. They know us because of the hotels, the restaurants that we have there. No matter where I go in the state, people recognize where I'm from. You don't have to explain where you're from. And they always say, oh yeah, you have the landmark, you have the cross. It's like exactly right. So I know they know exactly what we're talking about. And then, of course, the people that we talk to, whether they be from different retailers or different manufacturers, they all say the same thing. I know where Effingham's at. I've eaten at the Firefly Grill. So that they come to town for that, which is a wonderful thing. And my thing is to them, we have more than that. Come see us at City Hall and we'll talk, and about getting you to locate in Effingham.
And maybe the geography? Didn't mean to
right, yes. With the interstate, we have 35,000 cars minimum coming through our city every day. So that helps when we're trying to entice people to come. We have transportation that's available. We have several, I don't know the number of truck stops we actually are up to now, but we have people who look at coming to, they're looking for the assets that we have. We have water available. That's one thing that's very big for industry. They want to make sure you have water supply. So then we have the interstate. So we have the transportation that's available for them. We try to have the infrastructure that they need. We try to find out what industries need, and we try to fulfill those needs.
We have the railroads, of course, are an asset, and we also have a local railway as well. So that's an asset that we use for our industrial park.
So, doing very well, and prospects obviously looking pretty well so far. Let's sticking with business. Effingham was awarded the Google 2014 East City of Illinois. I didn't know what that was, but if you could explain what that is, and what does that say about Effingham?
Well, actually, when I was first notified that we won that award, I wasn't completely aware what it was for either. But actually, it actually, even though we accepted that award, it was in recognition, basically, of our businesses and how they use the internet to do business. And I was actually was impressed that I think it was Oak Park that was the last one that got it. I think I may have mentioned today Schaumburg, but actually it was Oak Park that won that the year prior to us. So that shows how we use technology in our city. I mean, it's a big influence there.
And let's move on to infrastructure. And you were telling me you have a specific type of approach looking at every building in Effingham.
Well, actually, what we do, as far as the city-owned and used facilities, we have formed a committee. Recently, we just did that of all of our department heads, and we've actually been going out to these buildings. We're looking at them, we're evaluating them, deciding, do we need to renovate? Do we need to look at maybe completely demolishing and rebuilding? Right now, we're trying to decide where the priorities should be.
That's right.
Let's move on to housing in Effingham, and where can you grow prospects of new properties possibly in this year?
Well, I mentioned that our north side is probably somewhat open, but we have a lot of farmland there that people don't want to sell. It seems like everybody wants to go north. We have some areas that we're pushing towards the south. Right. We're trying to push businesses, and we've been lucky enough to get businesses down there now. And so that's an area that we see could open up not only to industry, but to housing. But we just got to get people interested in going back south again, because as everybody knows where the interstate's at, they like to be somewhat close to that. But we're hoping that that'll help industry and housing in the next few years.
Okay, let's move on to roads, and specifically, Jim, I'll ask you the question, and maybe Murphy, you'd like to chime in on this. Effingham has several Illinois highways, US 45, interstate obviously go through, but those are taken care of by federal and the state. So you have a 5-year plan that you kind of work on the roads in Effingham and in the sidewalks as well. Yeah,
well, our 5-year plan is actually pretty comprehensive. We do roads, sidewalks, we do projects, any type of purchase that's over $5,000. It's all laid out through the 5-year plan, as well as water and sewer. But yeah, we have several different projects online for next year, council permitting. We do the plan basically in conjunction with the budget, so making sure that we don't have something in the plan for our fiscal year 16, which is our next fiscal year, that's not actually money in the budget to pay for it. So we want to make sure we're consistent. Right. Basically what we do is we utilize that as a budgeting tool. So I know a couple years in advance what's coming down the pipe, if you will. And so once I get there, I know if we can do it. Do we need to push it back a year or two? Can we pull it up a year or two to make sure we have the funds available to get that done? And this year, some of our major ones that we're going to do is we're going to do some work on the frontage road out by a new hotel that's being built off of Fayette Avenue, down there off of the interchange to the south part of town. We're looking to do some resurfacing there and also reconstruct a road going back to an apartment complex in that same area. So we're going to see some growth in that area, which is nice. We have the Honda dealership coming to the interchange there. We have the new hotel being built down there. We have some additional available commercial properties that are people are strongly interested in right now, and we also have a piece across the interstate. I guess it'd be going to the west that was purchased by a large commercial business. I want to say it was 10 years ago. That's actually finally starting to desiring to build there. So we're hoping to see that build here this next year as well. So we're pretty excited about that.
Let's talk about recreational facilities in Effingham, and let's talk about current ones before we talk about possible new ones.
Okay. Well, one of the main ones that we have right now is the Trek Trail. And actually, I was going to try to figure out, I know that we've got at least 10 miles with the recent additions. Now, some are actually in the county, but they adjoin the city. And what's really nice is that the city recently, with the reconstruction of our interstate, we had a bike pedestrian overpass that's been put in by the state, and that kind of attracts everybody's attention. But what it does, it actually ties the city to the county, basically, more by with our trails. It just helps us. You know, we've had sidewalks that you could get there with, but this now actually provides people a better way of traveling with the bikes. Of course, we have. Well, you want to talk about what we have now? That's the main one right now.
Yeah. Let's moving forward. I understand there's some new things in the works. Pool or courts, tennis courts.
Yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
It's
the Wortman and the Sports Complex.
Okay, yeah.
Basically that's been a project that's been on the books for several years for the community. In fact, the city council actually looked at that 4 years ago, but now it's being built. It's in the process of being constructed. It's being done by the Park District on a property. I guess if you just south of the interstate, you can kind of see the build as you drive through the town, right off of Maple Street, and it's going to be a good one for the city for years to come. I think it's going to be a good project. There's going to be basketball courts there, of course, the indoor swimming pool. They're actually going to have some areas actually reserved or used by the hospital for some therapy use, that type of thing. One thing, though, recreation-wise, I'd like to throw in is the Effingham Performance Center.
Right.
You know, we've had that there for several years now. It used to be the former Rosebud.
Yes.
But now they've done a wonderful job over this last several years with their bookings and their shows that they've had down there. Kelly Pickler's coming to town here in just a few weeks. So I made the mistake of getting on Twitter and saying, Kelly Pickler's coming to town, get your tickets now. And I got bombarded with people saying, I've tried, but I can't get my tickets. Well, I didn't read the sheet far enough down. It said on sale in a few weeks or something like that. I was like, But anyway, she's coming to town, which would be a wonderful thing. And it's good to have those shows like that and opportunities for people in Central Illinois to come see those shows for a reasonable price.
You guys do get a lot of artists that come down to the EPC.
We do.
Very much so.
big name.
Let's move on to tourism and quickly the overall landscape, and with some of the things that you do have come through Effingham yearly, the staffing you need to take care of
Well,
this.
we have a major tourism presence in that we have 2 full-time people, 2 part-time people that work all year round, and in the summer we have to increase that with other part-time people. I think everyone's aware of the Mid-America Corvette Festival that we have. We also have the Volkswagen Festival that comes there. Our Harley Barn, which is again a unique shop that we have. They have a national barbecue event that's held there every year. We just have so many different types like that our tourism bureau is kept very busy in that they stay in touch with these businesses and make sure that we're doing what's necessary. Having the convention center, we have a lot of people coming in for conventions. Our tourism department works with them, provides buses, takes them on tours, when they have some downtime between their conventions. We're very proud of our tourism. And you may have seen signs that have been put up, which helps us both in tourism and economic development, located throughout the state. And again, very, very active tourism department.
Something we'll have to follow up on is the tourism.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So last question, and we'll start with Jim and then Merv. Strengths of Effingham moving forward. I know it's a broad question, but something you may want to point out moving forward. Strengths of Effingham.
I think it's the the local businesses, their entrepreneurial spirit. They have several business leaders in town there that help the city grow, and then you put that with a good city staff that helps you get things done on a day-to-day basis. I think those are two positive strengths. And working with a team of elected officials that support the staff and that support the local businesses.
Merv, what can you build on?
I think the only other thing is our infrastructure. Our public works department is of course, we feel that all of our departments are good, and that what's one of the things when we hired Jim, we actually cut our staff down. As all of our departments were cut down, and so we are minimally staffed, but yet we feel like we have enough to accomplish what we need to accomplish, and they do an excellent job. But the Public Works Department, takes care of our streets, our water department, our sewer departments, and I think that's a strength. People looking to come to locate there, they like to know that we have that available.
Our time is up. I want to thank both of you for being on City Spotlight. Merv Gillenwater, the Mayor of Effingham, and Jim Arndt, the City Administrator of Effingham. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And now let's take a look at some of the upcoming activities going on in Effingham.
City Spotlight is supported by Consolidated Communications. CCI is honored to salute the cities and their leaders in the area, as well as providing TV, internet, and phone service to local homes and businesses. We live where we work and are proud to support the communities we serve. More information available at consolidated.com.